All right, so Sherrone Moore getting arraigned at this hour, and it is a sad story. And, I did most of the first 4 hours yesterday, 2 hours today on it. And, we've talked some Lions here, but since this is going down at this moment, and if people didn't hear the beginning of the show, I will tell you this. I'm around people. I get to go to a lot of stuff. I get to talk to a lot of people. And I think it's good to convey stories to the audience and to provide some insight when it's applicable to things that are going on that everybody's aware of and what's behind it and things behind the scenes. There have been times in all of our lives probably where somebody has fooled you and somebody you thought didn't think something like this they were capable of. And you find out later and you're like, oh my God, I bet everybody in their life has discovered skeletons in someone's closet that has surprised them. And there have been people that when you find out about the skeletons, you might think, yeah, it kind of checks out. Like you weren't, not that you thought that they were up to nefarious things, but you were, when you find out about it, maybe you're not as surprised. I'm also fully aware that when the media is around, when you're in front of the media, you might act different to portray a certain image. So I'm never stunned when I hear things. I will tell you in Sherrone's case, I did not see signs that something like this was going on. When the rumors came out, I'm like, making phone calls to try out the validity of them. At the time, nothing could be verified. The thing is, when you're at a big institution and you see rumors and hear rumors and you do an investigation, the investigation included obviously speaking to the individuals involved. I know I was told today I went so far as to phones being confiscated to go through phones to look for any evidence there. None turned up. Now, that doesn't mean there weren't burner phones or other accounts that were used that were not accessible in those phones, but that was part of the investigation. But Michigan went out and hired an outside investigator to come and look at this thing. And when they did, it was on Wednesday that the evidence was presented. And when that happened, he was fired pretty much immediately. You have to keep in mind that if you do not follow, like you can fire somebody on rumors. You can fire them based on rumors. Then you create a bit of a vulnerability to lawsuit. But that doesn't mean you don't. But if you can verify those things, you can fire them for cause and it's over. And that's what happened here. Now, should they have done a better job with their initial investigation? I think those things are being looked at, as they should. Beyond that, there were mistakes made maybe in the vetting process that need to be looked at. With that said, you hope that this is a clean break and that a new quality coach who's not going to put the university in any more embarrassing situations can be brought in. I went off yesterday at the beginning of the show because you can't keep going back to this well. The damage and the embarrassment that's been brought to the Block M, eventually the brand takes a hit and the entire image, if it already hasn't, like I get that some people are slamming Michigan now, and it's not that they don't deserve some of this, but if you can get a good coach in that is going to keep Michigan above board and not have any embarrassing incidents, they can move forward. And we've taken these calls from people say, who would take that job right now? It's a fair question. I can tell you the sources I talked to, they are pleased with the ample amount of good candidates who have, through back channels, reached out. And just leave it at that. But that said, sad story, Sherrone, with the charges today. Dan Wetzel just tweeted out, it's worth noting, as a first-time offender, it's unlikely Sherrone Moore would face anything close to the maximum punishments, if any, incarceration. But we're just getting started on this process.
Well, and that's the whole second part of it. And the first part is that he engaged in an inappropriate relationship with the staffer. That's what got him fired. What happened afterwards is totally
unbelievable,
separate from that, and that's why he's in front of a court right now, where he's actually in a jail cell via Zoom or whatever, talking with the courts, and whenever they get his plea, because he is alleged to have broken into the home of the young woman. So the other details that are coming out of this is this was a relationship that went on for at least 2 years, up to 2024 at some point. This is absolutely, it's a cut and dry, seemingly fireable offense.
Yep.
and it closes the chapter on an ugly time for Michigan. And it's up to, well, it could close the chapter. It's up to Michigan now to clean up their mess and make some changes. And now they're forced to make changes, at least with the head coach. Will they decide that, okay, let's really go for the clean sweep and move on from the athletic director? That remains to be seen. I think they should. I think Ward Manuel should go. And they really need to get together on this. And the question asked, and people say, well, who would take the job? I think lots of head coaches would want to take the job. You still have great resources at Michigan. I don't think those resources are going to stop because of, the cheating and the whatnot that was going on there. I think that they'd want to hire a coach that's going to get back to the standards that they have and also win football games. And those coaches are easy enough to find, and it's Michigan. Coaches are going to want to go there because they know the resources are available. And they know that there's prestige involved with it, even if other fan bases don't like to admit that. That is the case. The problem with it is it comes at this time after the hiring cycle has already kind of gone by. So you can still find some really good candidates. We've talked about those candidates over the last couple of days. We'll continue to talk about those candidates once they, if more information comes out. We'll find out if they have hired a search firm to get this thing going, or if this is, in fact, something Ward Manuel's going to head up, or are they going to hire a new athletic director soon and that person's going to have the chance? I don't know. They got back channels they can go through to get something done.
As we start talking about who the next guy is, the two names that I think are worthy of a lot of focus and attention, one is Kalen DeBoer, which is, the head coach at Alabama, who Josh Pate on ESPN said this morning he has talked directly, face-to-face, on and off the record with Kalen DeBoer and has not been told by Kalen DeBoer that he is miserable there. When a topic comes up, he says that that's not true, in spite of some of the online speculation and, of course, the extremes of a fan base that will complain about a coach in the year two and being a mere playoff team with a shot at a national champion and not the national champion favorite. But that's what Nick Saban has done, has spoiled that fan base. And look, they're very, very high standards indeed. But with that said, does he become way more available a week from tonight if they lose to Oklahoma? I would argue that game, the outcome of that game, might have some impact on who the next head coach at Michigan is. The other name is Kenny Dillingham, who, if you watch the arc of Bo Nix's career, it's interesting because Dillingham was his OC his freshman year when he was SEC Freshman of the Year at Auburn. Then Dillingham went to Florida State, and Bo Nix didn't get any better. In fact, he kind of regressed, at least statistically. Then Dillingham goes to Oregon, become Dan Lanning's offensive coordinator, and there Bo Nix transfers and immediately becomes an elite quarterback at the collegiate level and becomes a college football Heisman Trophy finalist. His teams play tough. He's a young guy who's really intense and can recruit. Given the resources of Michigan, Kenny Dillingham is at Arizona State. I think could have a lot of success. And the thing about it is, though, he has no ties to this area of the university, which is fine. But I think then you probably want to sprinkle your staff with some Midwest guys and maybe some guys with Michigan ties to help navigate, the context of his new job.
Yeah, I still think that Jed Fish is someone they're going to look at, or they should look at. The head coach over at Washington, who's done a nice job there after taking over for Kalen DeBoer. Had also been out west prior to that. Had been at Michigan for 2 years? Was he the quarterback coach? And
yeah.
I don't know if he coached wide receivers there or not, but it was
like 2000 passing game coordinator.
Yeah, 2015, 2016, the first couple of years of under Jim Harbaugh, before he moved on to other ventures. But I think that'd be a good place to go if that's where they're going to start looking for the coach, which they need to start looking for. I think you want somebody that's got head coaching experience, somebody who's in the Big Ten and has already coached at Michigan and knows what the landscape is like there. I think that's another name to throw in there.
All right, we'll get back to your open line calls. The latest on Scooble. There's some interesting conflicting reports about the probability of him getting traded. That at 118. We'll have our picks at 124. The Birchie Kid from Allen Park at 130 here on Karsch and Anderson on 97.1.